So right behind me now, we've got my 79 Cruiser, better known as the Kincrome 79. You may have seen it before in previous iterations of how it looks in the side-by-side versus video where it got a fair punishing. To head up to Coffs Harbour and hang out with the team at 4Drive 24/7, we've given the car a bit of a birthday, given it some love, got it up to spec for what we want to do. I'm Tank. I own a 79 Cruiser and I've just said yes to a trip that I know this thing can't do in its current state. Buckle in as I pull as many strings as I can to give this bucket of bolts the biggest makeover it's ever had, all in 4 short weeks. This is Off the Coffs. All right, so if we jump under the car, first thing we want to talk about is the suspension. We teamed up with Tough Dog for the trip, so we stuck obviously springs and shocks under there. So the shocks we chucked under are the Ralph shocks, paired up with the right spring rate with the springs. We've got it all sitting nice and level, still flexes around and gives the best ride you can for a 79. When it comes to the wheel and tyre package, Wheel Pros have been a long-time supporter and partner of Kincrome and Kincrome Racing, so we've been lucky enough to get our hands on a set of KMC grenades. They're a true beadlock, which is super exciting, and we've wrapped them in a fuel off-road tyre. They're the gripper tyre, they're a 35, they're mud terrain, hopefully give me plenty of grip out there on the tracks, wet or dry. Another important thing when you're off-road, to keep all 4 wheels actually turning and make it 4-wheel drive, it's twin lock. So we've got Harrop E-lockers in the front and the rear. Super excited to be running the E-lockers in the car, and I love the simplicity of them. Problem solving, if you have a problem, it's 2 wires. And if it's not that wire, it's that wire. So pretty simple. I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to the bar work on a 79. I like that classic look. So I've got an ARB bar up front. Obviously it's got the hoops on there to protect you from the trees and the wildlife. We've got scrub bars on there too. So if I lean the car into a bank or something like that, it's going to give it a bit of a protection. And then last thing, we obviously got the side steps and the sliders. So if you're getting bellied out on rocks and all that sort of stuff, I've found that these are quite a strong slider. You can lean on them pretty hard, and they're a nice step to get in the car too. With the lift in the car and the big wheels and tyres sitting a little bit higher, so they're a nice step, but also very practical. Moving further back on the car, we've got the tray and the Canopy package, you want to say. It was actually a COVID project for myself, and I was like, I'm going to build myself a tray, and I did. It seems pretty cool. I can promise you one thing: if you had to recover the car and you didn't have a recovery point, you could definitely recover it off that tray, because it's very solid. Moving to the back of the car before we jump up top, I'm actually running a Heyman Reese X-Bar on the back. What I love about it is it's got built-in rated recovery points on there. Pretty important to myself and everyone out in the tracks to be safe. So I'm excited to have that on the back of the car. Once you move up to the top of the vehicle, I've got Rhino racks on the front above the cab and also on the canopy. What I actually use the front rack for now is a solar panel up there to run that 12-volt system that we'll touch on. Again, laser lamps, huge supporter of the race team. After seeing how they perform even in the daylight, in the dust, with the race team's fantastic. And then the real true standout obviously is when you get out at night. You hit that switch and light up 20 billion lumens of light and it becomes like daylight, which is super cool. Mounted up on the front of the Rhino rack is a laser lamp 48-inch Elite bar. And as the name says, it is elite. What I'm most impressed with and most excited about was to bolt the laser lamps on the front. So I've got 3 spotties across the front. I like the look of 3 spotties. It fills the space really nicely. A little bit unique, not everybody does it. But they're the Laser Lamp Sentinel Elites, and they are a killer light. So all this talk about camping, you got to get out there and camp, and one of the big things in Australia is it's either raining or it's hot. There's not really much in between. So the last thing up on that rack there is the big Bush Company 270-fold max awning. It's kick-ass. Honestly, I love it. Realistically, it takes 35-40 seconds to set it up, pull it out, and you've got full shade, full cover from the rain. And the best thing I've actually found about it is packing it up is, let's call it a minute and a half max, from full setup to full pack up. One of those things with awnings, if they're hard to pack up, hard to set up, you've got to pull ropes out, you got to peg them down, you don't use them. So you end up bolting this weight on the car, you don't end up using it. Like, I highly recommend, get yourself a good awning. All right, so under that is Navigator. So Navigator, again, race team sponsor, and they make epic products. I'm definitely taking a chair, definitely taking a table, and a few storage bags to keep things dry and keep some of my dirty gear in as well. So that'll be in the canopy. On the outside of the car, probably the last things to touch on before we jump into recovery gear is actually just the clear view mirrors. I've had them on the car for quite a while. They're not new to me. I chucked them on for towing. Being able to see what's next to you is obviously super important. So I'm a fan of the clear views. You can extend them out. Another upside is they fold back in quite nicely. So if you're in a tight track, you can fold the mirrors in. If you bump a tree, they'll actually fold in themselves. So we all know we're going to Coffs Harbour. 79s, it's tough, but it's heavy. So we're gonna need to recover the car. To touch on the stuff that, you know, probably most people should have if you get out on the tracks, especially if you're going out solo, definitely wanna have some recovery gear to be able to recover yourself. First up is a winch. I've got a winch on the front. It's a worn winch. I went with the big dog winch because it's a heavy car. It's never let me down, so I'm very, very happy with the winch we've got on the front of the car. Obviously, those rated recovery points around the car, as I touched on the tow bar in the back, there's rated recovery points in the front. And then the more basics that anyone can buy and stick in your car, and it's great for self-recovery or team recoveries, is Max Tracks. So I've got 4 Max Tracks up on the roof. I've got the Max Tracks Extremes. Everyone knows black's my favorite color, so I didn't go the typical orange ones. I have got the black ones up there. And the Extremes are the ones that had the aluminium inserts in them. So if you do spin a tire on the Max Tracks itself, it doesn't damage those little lugs. And if you do damage your Aldi ones, you can replace them. On top of that, we've obviously got kinetic ropes, winch extensions. I've actually got a winch ring in case we have to do a big recovery, or it's proper stuck and you need to like double line pull on the car. So I've got the winch ring in there. And then soft shackles. I've done everything I can do in all my years of four-wheel driving and off-roading and towing things to eliminate as much steel in a recovery system as you can. So I've gone soft shackles. You need a failure point. If you've got a recovery system going and something is gonna break, you want something to fail, and a soft shackle is cheap, for one. If they fail, they're cheap to replace. And secondly, if a winch rope fails or something, you haven't got a big chunk of steel that's gonna come back towards you or towards someone else that's actually helping. So big fan of soft shackles. All the Max Track stuff I've tested and the race team uses, it's never let me down. Righto, we're gonna jump into the interior of the 79. If anyone knows anything about 79 series, every part of the car in this market and the aftermarket for them is huge. The reason you buy accessories for a 79 is they are a bulk stock farm truck. They're made for sitting on a mine site, idling away with no creature comforts. It's a big V8 diesel, just keeps chugging along, but you definitely don't get the niceties. It comes with nothing. So one of the first things I actually did was chuck Hurricane fabrication seat brackets in it and XR6 seats. Very, very common for a lot of people with the 79s. It lowers you down in the car a little bit. I'm kind of a tall dude, so you sit a little bit lower in the car, it's a little bit more comfortable, gives you a little bit more leg room. And when you're on those long trips, absolutely makes sitting in the car for hours a lot more comfortable. Moving up in front here, I actually went out, put a PVS steering wheel on it, which I thought was really cool. Looks nice, almost looks factory, which is kind of nice, but it adds a few modern features to it. You can now control your stereo off of that steering wheel. I changed the stereo to a Polaris head unit. So wireless Apple CarPlay, which is very cool. It's great for maps. I tend to use NewTracks, love NewTracks, but any of your mapping programs you want, it's all there at your fingertips. When it comes to communications, I'm sort of on the point of buy it once, buy it right, spend that little bit more money and you'll be happy with it. So I chuck GME gear in the car. I've got the GME XRS in the car, which is an absolutely kick-ass UHF system. The cool thing is you can actually mount your receiver box in behind the dash or somewhere hidden. Your sound comes out of the hand receiver and obviously you talk into that, which means it's nice and clear to hear. If it's loud outside the car and it is a 79, they do drone a bit, they're on muddies. You can hear nice and clearly with that, but a big fan of GME. Also Australian made product, which is pretty cool to have other businesses that are Australian owned and Australian made involved too. So that's very cool. Last but not least is what's in the Canopy. Everyone's talking 12 volt systems these days. I try to go pretty big and I also want something super reliable. What I've done is primarily I've gone with Red Arc gear. Again, another Australian made product in most cases, and super reliable and a wicked network as far as Red Arc have got so many dealerships and distributors around the country, it's pretty easy to get a bit of help. So when you jump in the back of there, I've got the Red Vision screen, which is cool. That controls all your switching, it controls all your lights, gives you your battery in, battery out, how much power you've got until it runs down. I'm sure a lot of people know about the Red Arc system. If you don't, it's worth having a look at. It's very cool. Powering all that, I've got a 240 amp hour battery, which is then connected to the Red Arc TVMS system. So that replaces all those things that make wiring your car hard. All your long wire runs, all your multiple fuses you need to run in, and all your relays you need to do. That's all included in that box. So essentially, you don't have to run all these separate relays. You don't have to run all these separate fuses and fuse holders. It keeps it really nice and neat. And it's also like the bit of the brains that runs between the inverter. I ran with the 2000 watts because I wanted to be one of those guys that starts running induction cooking. A lot of race meets, early mornings, cold mornings, late nights. Gas is reliable to an extent, but if you're running small gas canisters, one, you can run out of gas and then you can't cook, and no one likes that. But number two, wind is a problem, and cold gas canisters, they don't flow properly. So I have moved into the 21st century. I've rolled with an induction cooker. You needed the inverter to run that induction, so I've done it. Very excited to use it, which also, having an inverter allowed me to run 240 power points in the car. I have to thank Macca out on that one from Shed Life, because he helped wire all that in with the boys from Aussie Arvos. Having 240 in the car means we can charge camera gear. It means you can charge laptops, which is, you know, pretty hard off of a 12-volt system. You can run an air fryer, you can run a coffee machine. I really love the fact that we do have that inverter and a ton of power. So 240 amp hours behind that running it all. And then obviously the basics, we've got lighting inside the canopy on both doors. We've got lighting inside the canopy so you can see what's going on there. That all runs through that Red Vision switch there. The one other thing that I love about having the 240 in there as well is Kincrome power tools. Power tools require batteries. Batteries require charging. So I've mounted a Kincrome charger in the back of the car to be able to charge the 18-volt batteries. That allows us to make sure we've got the impact wrenches, the grinders, the drills running, work lights, anything like that, that we can actually recharge our 18-volt batteries, and that, again, all runs off that inverter. So super excited to have that level of power in the car. Is it overkill? Never. It's never overkill. More power, the better. Very excited to put it to the test. I want to thank everyone that helped put that together, because there was a lot of big nights in the shed. All right, so are we expecting to head to Coffs and be trouble-free? Absolutely not. The first trouble is it's a 79 Cruiser. The biggest challenge there, regardless of getting your spring rates right and doing all that sort of stuff, is it's a heavy car. I've got big leaf packs on the rear, so I'm expecting to have a few challenges with those leaf packs, getting hooked up on rocks, maybe stuck in some ruts. But that's the battle of having a 79 and trying to carry that much weight. Weight as a whole is going to be a bit of a challenge. As I said, that wicked awning up on top, I did touch on, it's a little bit heavy, makes the car maybe a little bit more tippy, maybe is the best way to put it. Big, heavy steel tray. So there's some challenges I'm gonna have. The other challenge you've got with weight is mechanical problems. You're putting a lot of stress through the car, through its drivetrain. So anywhere between diffs and axles and CVs and all that kind of stuff with a heavy car gets a lot of shock loading on it. So there is some potential issues with that sort of stuff happening. Probably the last challenge I've got, other than my ability to drive the car, is it is a manual. You'd probably notice most four-wheel drives that are coming to market these days are autos. There's a lot of advantages with automatics. One, towing. You can tow much more with an auto. But two, when you get onto a tough track, if you're wedged up on a rock and you really don't want to roll backwards and there's a lot of things happening at the time, being in a manual can be an absolute challenge. I'm pretty confident. I've driven manuals my whole life. Nearly every car I've ever had's a manual, but I've also been in situations where you're like, don't roll back, tank, and it's like, that's easier said than done. Handbrake in a 79, not a thing. I just feel like more right foot, a little bit of clutch dump, send it up a hill, should be all right. All right, so that is the build. That is the Kincrome 79, and I'm super excited to get it out on the tracks, take it up to Coffs, and really test out everything we've done. I want to thank everyone that helped us. There was many, many late nights in the shed, and also the businesses involved that helped us make this happen, because realistically, to get this to happen is it's not a cheap exercise to take a car and build it to this extent, and without the support of everybody involved, absolutely couldn't have done it. So if you want to check out in detail the build, what we did, how we did it, who helped us do it, jump across the channel. There'll be a playlist and you can follow the build through from go to woe. Also jump across the 4Drive 24/7 channel, check out how I go at Coffs, see if I keep the car on all four wheels, and see how much stuff I break, to be honest, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure it'll be an experience I never forget.